Thank you. The Honorable Minister for Zimbabwe, my colleagues from the various African states, the partners and investors, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. My apology for coming late yesterday, not out of want, but out of necessity because we could not connect in time. Again, the use of technology in reverse here. I've come last, not because I'm very good, but looking at the ICT integration in education, the Kenyan experience. 5 points that we'll look at is how the Kenyan education sector has come through, the bird's eye view, and the policy grounding for ICT integration in education. And ICT for education initiatives are a very important feature in the control of the type of the hardware or software that finds itself into our purview and the immediate outcomes and the opportunities for partnership and investments. Again, if you look at the demographic figures, we have about 20,000 Kenyan primary schools, representing a total population of 9.6 million children. By that share, I think you can now compare with Namibia and Botswana and the Kenyan experience when we have 9.6 million going to over 10 million children in the primary circle. And in the secondary circle, currently, we have 7,000 secondary schools compared with the 235 secondary schools. So challenges are different from one country to another. In our case, it's the sheer numbers that is overwhelming in dealing with the issues of teacher-pupil ratio. And I'll come to that shortly. We have about 20 teacher training colleges. I should say there are 1.9 million children in our secondary schools. And the teachers that we have employed so far are 258,019. But this figure, because we are running shortage of teachers, when you look at the teacher-pupil ratio, we should be having well over 336,000 teachers. Currently, we have 258,019, giving a shortage well over more than 70,000 teachers, teacher shortage. That's where technology gap can be of use in utilizing the teacher professionalism into be able to scale other levels. On the issue of policy on IC integration, there are 4 policy documents. Sessional paper number 1, 2005, laid out a policy framework for education and training and research. I think that's what is left out there. Under this sessional paper, there was a program which was developed, what we call KESAP-1, Kenya Education Subsector Support Program, with 23 investment programs. Under these 23 investment programs, the ICT was just a subsector of those investment programs. There is, of course, the National ICT Policy, which is available on the website we have developed, 2006, particularly through the Ministry of Information and Communication, and our own ICT strategy for education and training of 2006. The 2 strategies are available at the website. Our Kenya Vision 2030 is a blueprint for Kenya's development by 2030, again with a very heavy component on ICT. KESAP 2 has an indication of what should happen. If you look at under the Vision 2030, my ministry is mandated to drive a flagship project which aims at advancing science and technology and innovations. And we have chosen a model that is very clear, and I like to adopt it from Kesnet, Netherlands. It's a very simple model that we like to use and look at the various aspects of that model. If you look at that model, you'll see that right at the beginning is the flow of information. Flow of information from all quarters. And the country should be in a position to decipher that type of information that you want to develop and accept to form a main framework for your policy enunciation. It's a very critical. There are all sorts of information that flood in, and everybody coming in telling you this is the most innovative way of doing things. And the leadership, and in this case, those of us who are in a position of policy, the ministers and the senior managers in education, we should be in a position to sift through that information that is coming through, and out of that information, form informed decisions and policy considerations that will drive the process. In our case, we have been able to form the ICT policy 2006, which is now driving the process. And in that process, that policy must be clear, must be targeting areas. In our case in Kenya, we are now currently targeting the secondary schools because we believe we need massive investments to be able to reach out on the lower primary schools. But we're still moving downwards. We should have started a bottom-up approach, but it's not been possible financially. Those are areas of investments and collaboration with the ADB, World Bank, USA, and many other partners that we need to loop in so we can be able to develop that policy. And then the expertise is critical if you have got to get this policy, ICT policy, through. We have currently trained most and the majority of our education officers, the headquarters, everybody, from the minister down to my deputy ministers, permanent secretaries, their senior officers, the educational managers at the ministry headquarters, to the provinces, to the regions, the district headquarters. The majority, about 80% of our education managers now are ICT compliant. It's important to be able to know what you are trying to achieve, because these are the people who are going to carry out the monitoring and evaluation processes when you roll out the ICT to the schools. And then the digital learning materials, which are important. We have our center, the Curriculum Development Center, which is Kenya Institute of Education. In that center, we've now been able to develop the digital content material for the grades 4, 5, 6, 7, and we have grade 8 to go. At the secondary level, we have developed the digital content for grade 1, 2, and for Form 1 and Form 2, and we have left with Form 3 and Form 4. Why I'm bringing this issue into focus is that when you develop solutions, technical solutions, particularly you partners and the innovators who are in the business or in the market, it's important that some of these things are compatible with the kind of technology we'll be able to use to deliver the digital content to our schools. Most of it is in the CD-ROM, and some of your gadgets may not have the facility, the CD-ROM. And therefore it's important and critical that you are able to now adopt your technology to be able to accept the various digital contents that we have developed. And at the end of the scale is the ICT infrastructure. I'd like to agree with the Namibian friend that what happened initially in Africa is that everything was done, particularly the the mainframe, and it was called a computer. It looked beautiful, it looked academic, but at best at the corner of a school, just being seen as a gadget. And therefore people expected to absorb technology through just watching it. And you can appreciate that's not possible. It has to be an interactive process. And therefore for us to have this model, the quality of education will hinge on how we seamlessly integrate teaching and learning through a linear process, and we're giving rise to collaborative and support from our partners and from within government. That should be able to give us what we consider a very important aspects. And I've already gone through that leadership model for ICT, for model vision, to provide quality education for urban leadership, critical pillars, policy, expertise, digital materials and infrastructure, and collaborative and support to meet the demands of ICT in most of our schools. Now, what do we have currently? NEPAD schools, 5 of them, little or no impact at all, because out of 7,000 schools, 5 schools will just be a drop in the ocean. And therefore, I've talked about the digital content development in Kenya, Kenya Institute of Education. What we have done as a country, we have invested through the Ministry of Education with the support of the Ministry of Finance. We've said we'll go in for specific economic stimulus package program for schools. And this has meant that we're supporting 5 schools in each constituency. Currently, there are about 210 constituencies. You can see through that program, between the last 2 years, 2010 and 2012, we've now been able to reach out to 1,470 schools under the economic stimulus package computer project. And this is an important feature because without taking that proactive process or approach, we will virtually not be in a position to roll out the ICT education to all our institutions. I have already made a petition to Treasury that of the remaining 5,000 schools, or 5,000 schools, if we can do a one-off infrastructure development, consider it as building a road of 10 kilometers. We have already costed it, we believe in terms of Kenyan shilling to come about 7 billion Kenyan shillings. I can't convert it quickly into how many million of dollars. That if that is given as a one-off infrastructure development agenda, and this is open to discussion with our development partners and other individuals, then now we have the capacity, we have the necessary capacity to roll out to all the 5,000 secondary schools that can be accessed ICT. And you can imagine when you are doing 5,000, currently we have covered 500,000 students out of 1,470. Then we roll it out to about 1.5, 1.7 million children. That is going to cause a revolution. Not the kind of revolution we're witnessing, but a different revolution in education, using ICT as a model. I need to say briefly about the National ICT Innovation and Integration Center. We've had to set up that one recently in order to be able to check on the kind of ICT materials being channeled to the country. Some may not be compatible with what we have, and therefore will be expected to be a waste, and therefore we need to scale it up. Now, I've already talked about those computers. In this ESP project, what we've done, we have computers and printers, projector, local area network, internet for 1 year. Again, capacity building for teachers and principals. We've trained over 10,000 teachers trained now on basic ICT, and many of them will be coming and I've talked about the digital contents. And one of the features that we're now using is creating the ICT champions in the programs, train of trainers, so they're able to roll out, particularly in the in-service training programs. The National Innovation Center, which I launched on 10th of August 2011, I think you'll see it, a little note there. It's a very important thing because it's showcasing and testing all the new technological solutions which are to be deployed to schools. We don't just accept any technology that comes to our schools. We've got to put it through a test and be sure that it's compatible with the systems that we have now established, which will be running our aspects. It also hosts the National Teachers Portal so that teachers can share experiences, and there's there the website. It also hosts the National Help Desk for support to schools, particularly those schools which are in need of that support, and acts as a teacher professional development center. I've already talked, and I need not go on that one. We have various programs. I've talked about the digitization of the curriculum, grade 4 to 8, the Form 1 and 2. And we have an Elimika program, a learning management system for online orientation of teachers on new curriculum issues. And particularly, like when I go back day after tomorrow, I'll be receiving the National Reform Policy on Education, realigning with the new constitution because of the devolved system of government. Therefore, there will be new policy issues coming out of that. And one of the areas which is standing out quite clearly in that recommendation is ICT as a clear investment program for the 21st century. And I think we're on the right track that we're doing that. We have a digital TV channel, broadcasting station. We are at the moment limited. It was launched, state of the art. It was launched last year by His Excellency the President of the Republic of Kenya. And what there is at the moment is that because it was the analog type of the system that the KBC, Kenya Broadcasting Corporation, is using, they have not tuned on to the digital service, and we hope they'll do it in this year. We will then be able to integrate this TV channel, education channel, dedicated to education and broadcasting to all the schools. And once that is done, we're able to go beyond the 100-kilometer watch throughout the country. And I'm amenable to the suggestions I've seen here, including the box school, including the Samsung remote area where electricity has not been covered. And under the agreements, the schools acquire the latest software which are highly subsidized, hence reduced costs of ICT. Now, the immediate outcomes out of this program is that all the 407 schools have been equipped with ICT infrastructure and the economic stimulus package. Over 10,000 teachers have been trained. Over 1,470 principals of those schools have been trained in the use of ICT for education management, and over 1,470 schools apply with Form 1 and Form 2 digital contents. And looking at it, the immediate outcomes are that we have ICT integration training manual has now been developed. We also have the National ICT Innovation and Integration Center launched, as I already showed you, the National Education Portal developed and operationalized, and the National Teacher Orientation Program, which has also been done. Opportunities for investments are the infrastructure development and deployment to cover the large numbers of academic institutions that I've already mentioned to you. Fortunately, mobile telephony covers about 80% of our country, and therefore we can roll out that feature. The rest of it, we can go to solar panels and solar technology that we can be able to reach out. The teacher training solutions and ICT integration in education, and the EMIS development and deployment. And I share the feeling that all of you, that the cost of the bandwidth is prohibitive. And I think it's an area where we can all be able to do a lot and reduce the cost of connecting the bandwidth with the resultant results of good educational programs. MEs, I need not say again because hinged on the type of bandwidth we have. Currently, we have a very restricted bandwidth, and therefore we're not able to discharge a lot of information and material. But we're now with the Ministry of Education, Ministry of Information, and the Treasury Statistics Department. We hope that that bandwidth will be able to increase. But the most ideal thing is to engage the Communication Council of Kenya to be able to get a dedicated bandwidth for which will be cost effective. And of course, digitalization of the curriculum content is a continuing process. And I thank you for your attention.